I'm Angela Marshall in Missoula, where our political analyst takes a look at one of the state's hotly contested races that could change the makeup of the U.S. Senate. We'll hear from him just ahead.
In Great Falls, I'm Taylor Tucker. As riots and looting continue across the country, how is it impacting primary elections? We hear directly from the governor.
I'm Ben Weinman. Tonight, a historic evening in the Treasure State. This is the first election in Montana history to be conducted all through mail. We'll talk with the Secretary of State. He's in charge of the entire process and what this means moving forward.
I'm Greg Lamont in Billings. We're in election mode tonight. We'll focus on voter turnout on Indian reservations across the state. And a legal issue still needs to be resolved about how ballots are collected on the reservation.
From your hometown election headquarters, this is a special edition of Montana Right Now.
It is primary election day here in Montana, and we are your hometown election headquarters. I'm Angela Marshall, and thanks for being with us. We have crews positioned throughout the state, but we do begin in Missoula tonight as Montana has three major competitive races in this primary election: the race for governor, U.S. Senator, and the U.S. House of Representatives. Now, voters are seeing a long list of candidates vying for their respective party seats for governor, U.S. Senator, and congressman. Current Congressman Greg Gianforte is running for governor, competing with the state's Republican Attorney General Tim Fox and State Senator Al Olszewski in the Republican primary. Two well-known Democrats, Lieutenant Governor Mike Cooney and businesswoman Whitney Williams, are vying in the Democratic primary for governor. Now, the race to fill Gianforte's House seat is also pretty competitive, featuring familiar names like current State Auditor Matt Rosendale and State Senator Kathleen Williams. Now, current Congressman Greg Gianforte, as I mentioned, is also running for governor. And the race to fill his seat actually looks pretty familiar. But we spoke to our political analyst Lee Banville in the race for U.S. Senate, as Montana's Democratic Governor Steve Bullock is vying for that position, currently held by Republican Steve Daines. Now, with Bullock getting into this race, Banville says Democrats have a fighting chance at regaining this seat.
Steve Bullock really helps them make the case that Montana could be a seat they could pick up. I mean, it is a seat that was held by Max Baucus not that long ago, and so they can push for that idea that maybe we can get it to turn back blue.
Banville says Montana could see a lot more money flooding into this election as the Republican Party works to retain Daines' U.S. Senate seat, maintain their party's presence in the U.S. House, and take control of Montana's governorship. Ben Wyman joins me now from the Missoula newsroom. Ben, Montana facing some unprecedented challenges with the coronavirus pandemic.
Yeah, Ange, you said it right there, that word unprecedented. I would even add maybe historic. Tonight is going to be something the state has never seen before, an all mail-in ballot election. And of course, this all happened because of coronavirus concerns and just wanted to keep people safe. Now, back in March, when the state actually shut down to flatten the COVID-19 curve, Governor Bullock mandated that the upcoming June primary be held entirely through mail-in ballots. And just last week, there was actually still some confusion about deadlines. This past Friday, the Montana Supreme Court overruled a Billings District Judge decision with their own 5-2 vote. The court ruled that all ballots in the state had to be turned into the various election offices by 8 p.m. Tuesday night to be counted. They cannot be postmarked for today and show up later in the week. They won't count. So to be clear, folks, if you've not turned in your ballot yet, you have until 8 o'clock tonight, and it would be best to drop it off yourself to the office. Now, today, we talked with Secretary of State Corey Stapleton, who's in charge of the election process here in the state, to see how his office has handled really an enormous change in the way Montanans vote.
By and large, since there is already about 2/3 of the electorate that votes by absentee, it wasn't a total stretch to try to add that extra third, but it wasn't without its challenges.
Now, there's been a lot of questions, I say both locally and nationally, about the mail-in ballot process and if this makes Montana elections more susceptible to voter fraud. All great questions. We're going to talk about it, as well as is this format of voting something we could be seeing come November when we have the general election? We'll answer those questions coming up later tonight on Montana Right Now. For now, I'm going to send things over to Billings, where Greg Lamont is standing by to see how those mail-in ballot processes are working on Native American reservations. Greg?
Thanks, Ben. As tonight's primary is being conducted entirely by mail, there is concern for voter turnout on Montana's reservations. Here is a live look at the Bighorn County Courthouse, where voters have been dropping off ballots at the collection box on the side of the building throughout the day, as only those who need to do a late registration are allowed in the building. Bighorn County is home to most of the Crow Reservation of Crow Tribe Indians, one of Montana's largest populations of Native Americans. BIPA, or the Ballot Interference Prevention Act, will not be in effect this election. A Yellowstone County judge issued a temporary restraining order preventing the enforcement of the act until a further order of the court. Montanans voted the law into effect in 2018 during the general election. But according to the ACLU, the law severely restricts Indigenous people's right to vote. The act limits who can collect and convey a ballot belonging to another person. The law requires someone wishing to submit another person's ballot to fill out a form with various information, such as the name of the delivering party, the name of the person whose ballot is being submitted, and that person's address. BIPA also restricts the number of ballots one person can deliver to 6. The ACLU of Montana says rural tribal communities work with Get Out the Vote organizers to collect and transport ballots to election offices. Bighorn County Elections Administrator Dulcie Bear-Don't-Walk provided some clarity earlier this afternoon on what that means for this year's primary election.
Okay, well, until it was enjoined, we were collecting the BIPA forms as required. Once the lawsuit was filed and they enjoined it, then we basically, if a form was turned in, we still accept it and process it the way we normally do by sending it to the Commissioner of Political Practices. But at this point, we don't ask for it if they do not provide it.
The ACLU says these ballot collection efforts are often only the way that Native Americans can access the vote, and that BIPA would effectively end this practice. At a hearing last Friday, the judge denied state officials' request to dismiss the lawsuit and set the next hearing in the matter for the fall, just before the 2020 general election. Coming up in the next half hour, we'll look into the history of voter turnout for Montana's reservations and what factors affect those turnouts. Right now, I'm joined by Taylor Tucker from her home studio in Great Falls. She's tracking how civil unrest across the country is impacting elections on the national stage. Taylor?
Thanks, Greg. It's a big day for voters across the country as 8 states and Washington, D.C. are holding their primaries today. But for many, voting in the primary is the last thing on their minds, especially in the midst of COVID-19 and in light of recent riots and looting in major cities across the country. Here's a video from Washington and Arkansas over the weekend where protests over the killing of unarmed black man George Floyd turned into violence and destruction. It put political leaders right on the eve of Election Day in a position to speak out and call for peace. Many responding to President Trump's comments that state leaders were not using enough military force and looked like, quote, a bunch of jerks. Yesterday, Montana Governor Steve Bullock responding during a conference call.
People across this country, indeed, many Montanans are in pain, and we need to protect avenues for people to express those First Amendment rights. Doing so can be done lawfully and peacefully. As Montanans make their voices heard, we need to continue to demand accountability, seek justice, pursue progress peacefully. We have to be working toward a nation where no one lives in fear of being treated unjustly by the very people who are supposed to protect them.
Now tonight, our election team is keeping an eye on elections across the country, looking for any signs of violence or protesting at these election sites. So far, though, everything seems to be peaceful. We'll update you if that changes. But for now, I'll send things back over to Angela Marshall for more election coverage from across the state. Angela.
Thanks so much, Taylor. And we'll have more election coverage coming up for you in just a moment. But first, I want to bring in our weather authority, Jordan Blaine. Good evening, Jordan. What should people expect as we plan for tomorrow?
And we're going to continue to see a lot more of that sunshine as we head into our Wednesday. One thing to take note, though, is we are going to see winds pick up a little bit. Tomorrow, winds between 25 to 30 miles per hour. And then one area, Bozeman, you do have chances for thunderstorms tomorrow. So a beautiful day headed into tomorrow night, though one area is seeing those thunderstorms. Tonight is going to be a perfect night to sit outside. Tomorrow, warm but windy. And then a look ahead, we are going to be seeing a rainy weekend. So stick around. I'll break down the rest of the week for you.
Thanks so much, Jordan. And to everyone at home, we are your hometown election headquarters, and we will have coverage for you all night long. Here's a quick look at some of the races we are tracking for you tonight. Montana has a U.S. Senate seat up for grabs. Now, after months of stating he wouldn't run for the seat, Governor Steve Bullock filed just ahead of the deadline. John Muse of Loma, Montana, is also running. On the Republican side is incumbent Senator Steve Daines. John Driscoll, a former Democrat who previously served as Public Service Commissioner, is also running, as well as Daniel Larson of Stevensville. Montana's lone congressional seat is up for grabs this year as Congressman Greg Gianforte leaves his post to run for governor. On the Republican side of the ticket, there are 6 candidates listed on the ballot. Joe Dooling, John Ivankovich, Deborah Lamb, Mark McGinley, current state auditor Matt Rosendale, and current Secretary of State Corey Stapleton. Now, on the other side of the ticket, Kathleen Williams and State Representative Tom Winter are also running for the Democratic nomination. And there are 2 big names seeking the Republican Party's nomination for governor: Attorney General Tim Fox and Congressman Greg Gianforte. State Senator Al Olszewski of Kalispell is also looking for the nomination. On the Democratic side of the ticket, it's also hotly contested. Current Lieutenant Governor Mike Cooney is running against businesswoman Whitney Williams. And as I mentioned, we are your hometown election headquarters, so you're going to want to stick with us all night long. As soon as we get the first round of results, we'll be back on the air at 8:30 tonight. Plus, we will have live reports from around the state, interviews with candidates, and reaction from our political analyst who's joining us live in the studio. You won't want to miss it. Stick with us. In fact, there is much more to come here on your primary election edition of Montana Right Now. Voters, you still have time to drop off your ballots, and we have those locations listed across the Treasure State coming up.
As we head into tomorrow, I am tracking one area seeing chances for thunderstorms. I'll let you know who coming up in just a little bit.